that, and I love being creative in any way possible, as much time as possible. I just made this sweater this morning. I didn't make it, I finished it this morning. But that's not what this is about. We're going back to November, to my old apartment where I was gearing up to make my first collared shirt ever. I've heard that collared shirts are some of the hardest things to sew, and I've never done it before, so I was setting expectations really low. But if they turned out well, I was gonna gift them to my boyfriend for Christmas. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me show you what I got at the thrift store. I've seen a lot of people making really beautiful shirts out of embroidered tablecloths, so I got this cornucopia one to try and make one myself. I think it's acrylic cotton blend. It's definitely not all the way cotton. Next, I got a thicker green fabric that I think is cotton to make a more structured shirt. I'm using this pattern from Simplicity, but only making the short-sleeved shirt. Now, please, go ahead, enjoy this view of the only square of floor I had in my old apartment. I really can never complain about not having the space to sew or do anything else, because I made this work. And I think that just goes to show that you don't need the biggest and bestest equipment. You just sometimes need to start with what you have. I didn't want to cut into the pattern pieces that came with the instructions, so I'm tracing the size I need onto some pattern paper and noting all the little notches and commas. Thinking about it, this probably came out really crooked because I'm doing it on a carpet that's on top of a really uneven floor. Oh well. Having the pattern all traced and cut, I started laying out my pieces on the fabric. This is when I started to notice a smell, but I was too focused to even care about it. I knew I wanted to embroider something on the front pocket of the green shirt, so I measured out with my embroidery hoop to make sure that I had enough fabric to actually embroider. And then I measured again, and then I measured again. I'm taking measure twice, cut once seriously for the first time in my life. This embroidery immediately sidetracked me, and I drew a little portrait of Tully the mouse from Bear in the Blick Blue Blouse. The Bear in the Blick Blue House. My approach to embroidery is very lazy. I just kind of do what feels right until it looks right. So here I am working on these intense eyes, and once I'd done the inside of one of the ears, I got back on track. I had barely set up my machine and done the preliminary sewing when the smell I noticed before became too much to handle. Even my fingers were reeking of cigarette smoke, and then there was the mysterious stain. It appeared out of nowhere when I started to iron, and that's when I decided to call it a day, throw the fabric in the wash, hoping that both the stain and the smell would disappear.
I think Hutter's looking a little tired, don't you?
It's a new day and all the fabric is washed, and I'm happy to say that the smell got out and also the stain. So I'm just ready to do the color now, and we'll see how it goes. This was the part I was most scared of because I didn't have any experience with the intricacies of a color. It did take me a few read-throughs of the instructions to understand my first steps, because there was supposed to be this little gap in the back of the collar that would be left unstitched. Once I figured it out, I started assembling the upper and lower collar, right sides together. Once I was done, I trimmed the corners and the seam allowance and flipped it inside out. I used a small crochet hook to push out the corners, and then as soon as I had ironed it, I tried pinning it on the body to see if I had succeeded. All my water-soluble markings were gone since I washed the fabric after cutting, so I had to eyeball the middle of the collar and yoke. Of course, I could have measured again with my pattern pieces, but I have to admit that I can be quite a chaotic sewer at times. After attaching the collar to the body, I quickly prepared the button band facings and sewed them on. Once again, I used my tiny crochet hook to push out the corners, and here you can really see that I did not align the collar with the middle. But will I fix it? No, of course not. Then came the time to sew down that mysterious gap in the back of the collar, and I finally understood that the purpose of it was to hide the last raw edge in the neck. I thought this was a really nice touch that made the final result feel so much more professional. Here's a little proud try-on where you can see that I'm not planning to add buttons all the way up, but will leave the top to be open in a V. What you can't see is my off-center collar, and that's why I keep thinking I can get away with this impatience. The next step was attaching the sleeves and sewing the side seam, and I've really come to enjoy this method where you sew the side seam and sleeve in one long go. Wow, would you look at that? I have to say I was quite proud in this moment and excited to add the pocket and buttons. Once I finished my tutter embroidery, I ironed interfacing on the back to keep all my thread endings in place. Then, to avoid a stitch going straight into Tutter's ears, I decided to hand sew the fold with a whip stitch. Next, I prepared and ironed down the sides and stuck it on the front of the shirt. The only thing left to do was the finishing touches, hemming the sleeves and body and making buttonholes. But not before reading my machine manual, because I always forget how it works. Then I marked where my buttons should go on the other front piece, sewed them in, and that was it for the green shirt. Now, the embroidery shirt proved a different challenge because I wasn't actually able to fit my pattern pieces on the embroidery the way I wanted it. So I ended up having to do a little bit of a patchwork solution under the arm, hoping that no one will notice. Then, having the experience from sewing the green shirt, I breezed through this one. The thinner fabric also made it much easier to work with. Suddenly it was time to finish the hem and pick up buttons and show you the finished result in a not at all awkward way. This is the first one I made, the green one. I can't believe how it turned out. I really like it. I know there are mistakes. There are mistakes on this and on the other one, but you literally can't see it. I'm so proud of the color, of the little embroidery. I think it's so cute. It is oversized on me, but it is for my boyfriend, so it doesn't really matter. But I can see myself taking this and just wearing if I wanted it like a nice oversized moment, just out on the town. Hopefully he'll like it so much that I can't borrow it at all. This is the second one, and I know I struggled with the placement of the embroidery and there wasn't really enough to do what I wanted to do, but I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I like the asymmetry of the cornucopia on this side and then just this edge on this side. And on the back I did the little grapes moment and the corners here. I really like it. I know it's a little bit out there. It's definitely a statement piece, but for the right occasion, it could be fun, like going to a summer party, a picnic, something, and you wanna do a little extra. This could be fun. If you've been intimidated by colors, just know that if you follow instructions, even though they seem weird, it will probably work out. Since making these shirts, I've really cut the bug and I've already found 2 thrifted embroidered tablecloths to make shirts for myself. You can stay tuned for that if you want to, but only if you want to. Okay, bye.
Wow, you look great!
I do! And I feel great too, Bear! Well, come on, Bear! Let's go to the market!